Today we'll start something called as content provider, right? So what is content provider? Then we'll see how to write the custom content provider, and as for the built-in custom content provider, we are going to see the contact list, how contact list is working, that we are going to see, right? Okay, then what can I do is that let me add Java 8 for this project like this. See, I have created a simple project. You can check it as a module jack options. You can say enable true, then compile options. Over here you can say compile options, source compatibility 1.8, and the target compatibility 1.8. Kindly sync the project, right? What is content provider? Let's get a little bit introduction about the content provider, how content provider actually works, or what are the content providers. And in the next tutorial we'll try to implement contact app. Okay, consider that this is your app, and consider that this is nothing but the contact app, built-in contact app in your phone, right? This contact app is having its own database, right? This contact app is having its own database. This is nothing but the contact app, and this contact app would be having its own database, and this is my app. Remember that this is your app, and that app wants to access this database. Make sure that every single application would be having its own database, its own virtual machine, and its own user ID. Every single application is having own user ID, right? That would be having its own user ID, its own virtual machine DVM, and its own SQLite DB, right? That would be having its own SQLite DB. So accessing the database from another app, it is like accessing the data of another process, right? So every application would be treated as one process. Every application would be treated as one process. Accessing data of another app from your application, right? From your application, which is very similar to access, or which is similar to the inter process communication. Remember that, which is very similar to the inter process communication. Means this application wants to access this thing, this database, right? So, or get the typical example of this is WhatsApp. How WhatsApp accesses your contact list? My question is that how WhatsApp accesses the contact list, right? WhatsApp can access your contact list only because of the content provider, right? Your application or this contact app has written something, right? That is nothing but the content provider. Via content provider you access the contact list. Okay, now consider that this is content provider of your application, right? Content provider will communicate, what I'm saying, content provider will communicate with the database, SQLite database, right? Content provider will communicate with the SQLite database, right? And every content provider is attached with something called as authorities. Every content provider is having one unique key. You can call them as authorities, right? Every content provider is having something unique ID, unique URI, and that URI is going to be called as what? Authorities. Okay, that authorities, right, if you want to access this content provider from this application, means consider that this application is willing to access this database, right? Means if your app want to show the list of the contacts that are in your phone, right? If your app want to show list of the contact from your contact app, right? Your app want to access the database of the contact app, then this app should communicate with the contact app by means of the content provider. If this app want to access the database of this app, right, you should get help of something called as content resolver. Content resolver will help you to get the access of this thing. Means your application would be asking for the content resolver, give me the, what you can say, give me the unique identity of the content provider, and you are going to communicate with the content provider by means of content resolver, right? This content resolver may give you access to the specific methods like query, then your insert, update and delete. This content resolver will give you access over this, right? Let's do this thing in the next application, right? Let's do this thing in the next tutorial. Means how you are going to access the contact list, that we are going to see in the next tutorial. So this is all about the introduction of the content providers, how actually content providers are going to work. In the next tutorial, I'm going to code, or I'm going to try to access my contact list, right, by means of the content provider. So if you like our videos, kindly subscribe us on the Code Cool channel.